Now recognize Dr. McCormick for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Dr. Wenstrup, Chairman. It's been insinuated that politicians, only bloggers, only conspiracy theorists are disagreeing with you. I want to point out that I'm probably the only member of Congress that actually treated patients during the pandemic from the very beginning to the very end of the pandemic, during night shifts in the ER. Thousands of patients during that time. And in 2020, I was censored. My medical license was threatened because I disagreed with bureaucrats. Literally taken off the internet as a person who is treating patients with leading-edge technologies, developing theories, but doing my very best, but being censored by the United States government for the first time, stepping in and taking the place of medical professionals as the experts in healthcare. Any dissent surrounding COVID-19 treatments, mask mandates, and any public policy surrounding the pandemic was immediately labeled as anti-science. I watched as public health officials and politicians told my patients what treatment options were best for them, regardless of their comorbidities or their medical history. Despite my education and my training and my experience, my opinions were relegated to conspiracy and misinformation by so-called healthcare experts who had never treated a patient throughout the entire pandemic. This has been a black eye on the medicine and has highlighted why government should never insert itself in between patients and their healthcare providers. The American people deserve to make medical decisions through conversations with their physicians rather than politically motivated mandates. Dr. Fauci, did you ever treat a patient for COVID during the pandemic?
I was part of a team that was at the NIH that took care. We didn't take care of many of them.
Okay, so not hands-on. Got it. Thank you. Why would I be criticized by a bureaucrat for doing my very best as a healthcare? This is a rhetorical question. But why? Why would the government, who's never treated a patient for COVID, you can read all the things you want, but you're not there. You're not seeing patients. You're not watching people die, intubating patients right there with that disease in your face, watching it happen, watching the development of this disease and actually learning from it. But I'm being told by bureaucrats what's right and wrong. And what's funny is everything I was censored on, I was proven to be right. Pretty crazy, isn't it? You said in an interview that you gave as part of an audiobook written by Michael Spector that you believed an institutional should make it hard for people to live their lives so they'd feel pressured to get vaccinated. Could we run the audio clip on that, please?
You think can be done about it. I have to say that I don't see a big solution other than some sort of mandatory vaccination. I know federal officials don't like to use that term.
Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you are going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Thank you. Are all objections to COVID vaccinations ideological bullshit, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and
Thank
that's
you.
not what I was referring to.
Well, in reference to making it hard for people to get education, traveling, working, I'd say it very much was in context. And I take great offense to this. Miss Allison Williams testified before this committee about losing her job because she sought an exemption for ESPN's vaccine mandate, which came from recommendation from bureaucrats like yourself. She and her husband were actively working with a fertility expert, a physician, on how to get pregnant, and agreed with the premise that she was young, healthy, wanted to get pregnant, and shouldn't get the vaccination for medical purposes. But she was fired because you made it hard, just like you said in your statement, because you didn't want to make sure that the ideological bullshit got in the way of her working, of living her life, of making a medical decision with her healthcare professional. I think America should take great offense to this. That's exactly what you meant when you said making it hard for people to live without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated, to actually flourish in American society, to self-determine, as we're all given God-given rights. Shame on you. Dr. Fauci, you've become Dr. Fear. Americans do not hate science. I don't hate science. The American people hate having their freedoms taken from them. You inspired and created fear through mass mandates, school closures, vaccine mandates that have destroyed the American people's trust in our public health institutions. This fear you created will continue to have ripple effects over generations to come. You have already seen its effects in education, in the economy, and everything else. Quite frankly, you said, if you disagree with me, you disagree with science. Dr. Fauci, I disagree with you because I disagree with fear. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Chief Moore. Having nostalgic feelings for our meetings over the last 16 years, and I'm very pleased to welcome you as the Chief of the Forest Service here today. A lot has happened in those 16 years, and it's heartbreaking. I'm sure you've had the same experience in my drives through the Sierra Nevada, whether it's to Yosemite or Lake Tahoe, Sequoia Kings Canyon, drives up to the Oregon border of beautiful forests that we used to take for granted are now simply gone. They've been reduced to scrub brush and dead tree trunks as far as the eye can see. I asked my staff to look into that, because is this an optical illusion, or what did the statistics say? And their estimate is that about 25% of our national forests have burned down in the last 10 years. Does that comport with your general figures?
Yeah, I don't have the specific number, but I wouldn't argue with that number, Congressman. A lot has burned.
A quarter of our national forests gone, simply gone. Now, I'm sure they'll grow back in a century or two, but they're gone for all of us for the rest of our lifetimes and for our children's lifetimes. The Forest Service was supposed to protect our forests, and for generations they did. And getting to Mr. Lamborn's point, I asked our staff to chart the board feet harvested out of the federal forests and the acreage burned in our federal forests. These, and this goes back to 1962 to 2022. You see the blue bars here? That's board feet harvested out of the national forests. The orange bars, that's acreage burned. And there's nothing subtle about this trend. It's dramatic, and you're right, it may vary from year to year. But you take a look at what has happened as the federal timber harvest has dropped precipitously, acreage burned has grown precipitously, and we agree that about a quarter of those forests have now been destroyed by these policies. You and I both know that excess timber is going to come out of that forest in only one of two ways. Either we're going to carry it out or it's going to burn out. What do these charts tell you?
Well, they don't tell me anything different than what they're telling you. I mean, I don't think it's a big secret. We're not managing to the degree that our forest needs. We also don't have...
And why aren't we? Because this is one of the great ironies. You look at the private landowners. In California, about half of the forests are privately owned. They're kept in excellent condition. And the landowners make a lot of money doing that. The federal forests are absolutely decrepit. Again, 1/4 of them destroyed. And yet we lose money. What's the difference?
So the difference, and you may or may not care to hear this, but the difference, we don't have the resources to manage the forest to the degree that they need to be managed.
Well, we used to, and we used to do it for a lot less. We used to make money harvesting this excess timber out of the forest. Now it costs us money, not because of a lack of resources, but because the laws that have been adopted in the 1970s make it cost prohibitive for us to continue those sound forest management practices, so not a lot gets done. And until you can acknowledge that, we're going to continue to have these discussions and these disagreements, and we're going to continue to watch our federal forests die out and be burned out. I do want to compliment you on the on your administration of the Wynn Act of 2016 that got a categorical exclusion from NEPA for forest thinning projects under 10,000 acres. That was administered in the Tahoe Basin under your leadership, and I believe that that was exemplary. I've been trying to get legislation to the floor that will extend those policies nationally. Would that help or hurt the cause of the forests?
Yeah, Congressman McClintock, you and I go back quite a ways, and one of the benefits that we have gotten from some of your legislation was the 5,000 acre CE while they're on the Tahoe area. Mm-hmm. And that was very beneficial in actually creating and supporting an industry that was nearby. So there are opportunities.
I think it actually saved the city of South Lake Tahoe from the Caldor fire. It hit a treated tract under that authority. The fire lay down, and firefighters were able to put it out. But I'm having a hell of a time getting that onto the House floor.